I'd say the content build out on our site was probably the biggest component of what we were interested in doing. And the two people on my content team, I've asked them like multiple times, but they were like, yeah, they've worked at multiple companies beforehand. Previously, my head of content worked at Masterclass. She's like, this is the best like project management system I've ever used.
Cool. Welcome everybody. We got Kai Cromwell, head of NewSeas SEO, on to talk about his experience with OpsKings. So Kai, we'd love for you to just give the people a little introduction on who you are, what you do, and we'll dive in from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been working with NewSeas for a couple months now. Like Ryan said, run a Shopify SEO agency for e-com brands, mostly in the 7, 8, 9-figure range. Currently working with about 20 to 25 brands right now. Been running the agency for about a little over 2 years now. 2 years and a month, I think. So we're in a couple months ago. Operations have been huge, kind of getting us to the point we're at. It's been pretty eye-opening. Solved a lot of problems the last couple months, so looking forward to kind of getting into those over the next few minutes.
Cool. Yeah, actually, we can start there. So you mentioned that we've solved a lot of problems over the last couple months. What were those for you? And yeah, what were those for you? And what's been your experience of just going through those problems?
For sure. Yeah. So, God, this whole year has been huge for growth. I think we started the year at like 20 or 25K a month, and now we're double, nearly triple that. At the start of the year, I could have never forecast the issues that would have arisen. I think you can kind of bandage solutions together at 20, 25K a month. We were working in, Sheets, Slack, ClickUp, Asana at one point. Like basically our core problem was that we didn't have a kind of central repository for all of our data. So, between link building, between content, between client comms, all that stuff, everything was in a different place, right? And that was fine when you had, 5 to 10 clients, you can kind of figure things out. But we added 3 new people to our team this year. We added, we doubled or tripled the amount of clients we had. And so those issues were just magnified. So the biggest problem being solved is moving everything over to Airtable, which we've officially done as of, early November, I think. So now, we were having 5-day-a-week stand-ups, making sure everyone had what they need. That's down to like 2 days a week now, with my content team. And honestly, I'm probably in one of them now. So I've gotten back several hours of my week off that. There's no questions about like what's coming up next for clients or, where are things at. Like it's extremely clear in Airtable. I know myself and 2 of my content team are taking some time off over the holidays, and I have absolutely no stress about walking away from it for a couple of days and coming back and knowing things are the way they should be. So the core issue was central data kind of source. There are a lot of like small issues that kind of, satellite off of that, but that was definitely the big issue that's been solved.
Cool. One of the interesting things about you is we actually we worked together just over I think it was about a year ago, just over a year ago. I guess when your business was much smaller and so was ours. I'm curious, like at that time a year ago, you obviously had some thought in your head about like the importance of operations and systems and things like that. So I'm curious looking back now, you obviously know what changed, but like what was going through your head a year ago, and how was that different to where you're at now? Like what made you stop working with us and then come back? Because we had a service swap and
Right.
We said, hey, like it's not really, like it wasn't really beneficial for either of us at the time.
Yeah.
And now you're back as a paying client. So yeah, I'm just really curious because you've experienced that growth and that difference in perspective, right? So I was wondering if you could elaborate on like the difference between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a year ago, like when I started working with Tony and then got into you guys, kind of when you guys created OpsKings, really, I think the biggest thing that Tony had done for me was build an onboarding flow in Zapier. And it took him all of 20 minutes, but like I thought that was sick as hell at the time, right? It is cool, but that was a big problem. It was a big headache for me at the time. And now like onboarding that was my smallest headache once that issue was solved, which is great. Then after that was kind of solved, like I said, I was able to bandage solutions together. And, like I said, the service swap wasn't extremely fruitful for either of us at the time, like worthy enough of it carrying it on. So honestly, like I had to do some kind of like introspection on the business. Like, where did I see it growing? Did I see it growing, to a certain extent? Ultimately I did, but like in my head, I was kind of justifying like, okay, I can get by right now on the current issues I have. And then kind of kept getting by. And then, I was like, working on weekends, working longer hours, trying to make like sure operations weren't like everyone on my team had everything they needed at all times, while also doing lead gen, also doing sales, also like doing some client deliverables. Like I was just working too much. So I knew if I solved the ops problem, I would have a lot of time back to do things I would actually grow the business and I actually enjoyed doing. So fast forward, pretty much a year. I guess we probably engaged like what 4 months ago or so. So let's say
Something
seven
like
months
that.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's say
Yeah.
7 months ahead of when we kind of ended, or 8 months ahead of when we kind of ended. All the things I knew I needed to solve were very clear. I think the first time I had no idea. I knew I had issues, but I had no idea what kind of the solution might be. This time I knew what the solution might be, and I think that definitely made it more efficient. Obviously, we did like the company brand and everything when we first onboarded. This time again, and our company brand this time looks a hell of a lot different than it did a year ago. But even so, as getting through it, like I was identifying problems that I probably wouldn't have identified a year ago. And so, like when I got to work with Steven, we were pretty efficient, I think, in identifying like what needed to be done and like what the priority order was. So I think that expedited the process extremely quickly. Like we were on Airtable on our content side, like within a matter of weeks after working with you guys. The link building side was a little bit trickier to kind of work around just with the process we have, but um, I think I just had more clarity. I don't think I probably needed. I don't think it was probably the best decision for me a year ago, but I definitely think it was the
Mhm.
best I made this year for my business was working with you guys. So
Cool. And like our process has gotten
maturity,
more
yeah, just
more
maturity, yeah,
sophisticated too, right? So
for sure.
I think it's probably on because yeah, like we a year ago we had just started.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah. So knowing, I mean, you're in a very unique position because you experienced what it was like to work with us in the early days, and now again you've had like kind of two stints with OpsKings in a sense, right? Like
Yeah.
one very very early, uh, our process a year ago, and if I experience it now, I'd probably be embarrassed by it. But what is there anything? So you said like you were quite like you knew what needed to be done this time around. But even still, I was curious: is there anything you've experienced since starting in the last couple of months that has been a surprise from you, or has been something that like wasn't necessarily you expected?
Um, as far as like the process goes, nothing that comes to mind immediately, but I will say, like, as I said a few minutes ago, like, I thought the Zapier onboarding automation was like at the time like the best thing that could have happened. I went from being a couple hours to a couple of seconds. I think now just knowing I have pretty little idea of how to use Airtable and like create everything in Airtable, but like watching Steven do it on our calls and stuff, and like watching the things you guys come up with, it's definitely it's definitely opened up my eyes to like what really is possible with kind of operations and automations and stuff. I had actually no clue about like the scope of what was possible, and now that I do, the future of growth seems pretty clear. Like onboarding new brands doesn't seem like we definitely are going like the boutique route of an agency, like small and personalized stuff. And that's I still want to keep that, but I can have small and personalized and boutique while also still onboarding probably more clients than another boutique agency may have, because I know the infrastructure is there to handle it. But I wouldn't have known that a year ago or even probably 6 months ago. So
Cool, love it. Um, is there? There's a bunch of questions I've asked you. Like, is there anything else that? But you've answered probably 5 questions for every one answer or one question I've asked you. You've done a very good job of that. Um, is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to add, or any thoughts you have around what your experience has been like, either specifically with OpsKings or with what it's been like to fix your ops in general?
yeah, I mean, fixing my ops has given me back a obnoxious amount of mental bandwidth. We're launching like new internal projects in our agency. We can onboard new clients. Like I said, I feel a lot less stressed about it, which is good. Also, like my team, I was talking to my I'd say the content build out on our side was probably the biggest component of what we were interested in doing. And the two people on my content team, I've asked them like multiple times, but they were like, yeah, this is. They've worked at multiple companies beforehand. Previously, my head of content worked at Masterclass. She's like, this is the best like project management system I've ever used. And my other like my junior head of content or junior content manager kind of said the exact same thing. So I knew like the architecture of my company and I knew like what I think needed to be solved, but it was good to get feedback from them also saying like, yeah, this is like totally game changing. Another one thing I would say in my agency, I don't have any account managers and I don't plan to at any point. And I've worked with other agencies that have them, and generally I tend to find them to be definitely like a step down from like the founder, which is obviously the case in most cases. Like working with Steven, like Steven's probably like one of the best account managers I've ever worked with. Like I didn't feel like I was being passed off to someone who like didn't know what they were doing, or like I had to go through a middleman to talk to you or Tony. Like, I mean, he probably knows more about my company than I do at this point. So I felt like
He definitely knows more than I do.
yeah, yeah, I felt like I was in
Yeah.
really good hands. So that was cool. Yeah.
Excellent. Love it. I think so. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I had for you. We may as well wrap here. Thanks so much for your time, Kai. Yeah, I guess you would yeah, anything else you want to say before we wrap here?
No, I mean, I'm looking forward to next year for sure. I'm launching a new project inside of our agency. So I know
Yes.
there's a year of operational challenges away, but I'm looking forward
Awesome.
to solving them. So,
Awesome. Cool. Appreciate it.
yep. Cool. Thanks, man.